mug is on your desk. The firm's intranet is open on your second monitor. The senior partner announcement was published at 4:17 p.m. on Friday. Your name is not on the list. Patricia Chen made senior partner. The vote was Wednesday. The phone rings at 6:42 p.m. The number is one you don't recognize. You answer because you are still at your desk, because there is no reason to go home tonight, because someone needs to be the person who answers the phone. You wrote the playbook. The committee chose Patricia. Unanimous. James Halloran delivered the news Wednesday. 63 years old, 2 years from retirement, the man who walked your CFF application through the AICPA review board personally. He brought the mug to the meeting. Inscribed with the firm's motto and your name in the year you did not become senior partner. He said the committee made a difficult decision. He said you had a long career ahead. He gave you the mug. You took it. You said thank you. You set it next to your keyboard, in the position where you would have set it if the announcement had said your name. You are 6 months from quietly leaving the firm. The voice on the line is Daniel Reyes. Here's what your job actually is. You have been a forensic accountant at Halloran & Vance for 11 years, CPA in 2018, CFE in 2019, CFF in 2021. You arrived from Deloitte with a temperament that made partners refer their largest matters to you because you returned every email within 4 hours and your work papers held under cross-examination. Forensic accountants are the only practitioners who routinely operate at the intersection of audit, investigation, and litigation. You hold 3 credentials: Certified Public Accountant for the Audit Foundation, Certified Fraud Examiner for the investigative methodology, Certified in Financial Forensics for the litigation grade output. You operate under attorney-client privilege when engaged through counsel. Your work papers are admissible as expert evidence under the AICPA's statements on standards for forensic services. When the court appoints you, you carry subpoena power. When you appear in a federal proceeding, you do so under the Doe-Bear standard, which requires every methodology you use to be both reliable and replicable. Your tools are named systems with named outputs. LexisNexis, public records for asset tracing across all 50 states. ACL Analytics for transaction-level fraud testing across general ledgers of any size. Bureau Van Dyke Orbis for global beneficial ownership mapping. 300 million entities. Ownership chains traced through every public registry in the world. The FinCEN Beneficial Ownership Information Registry, the federal database created by the Corporate Transparency Act of 2021 that is supposed to make exactly the kind of structures you investigate impossible to hide. Westlaw Edge for case law and procedural precedent. Your procedures are named methodologies. Benford's Law analysis for digit distribution anomalies in transaction sets. The first digits of legitimate financial data follow a logarithmic distribution. Manipulated data does not. Journal entry testing for round dollar entries posted at non-standard times by non-standard users. 3-way match audits for purchase order, receipt, and invoice reconciliation. Net worth method asset reconstruction. That methodology won the firm its 3 biggest forensic engagements last year. A medical billing fraud case. $18.3 million across 43 vendor entities. A breach of fiduciary action against the trustees of a family office. $22 million mapped through 9 bank accounts and 3 offshore structures. A securities fraud examination at a public medical device company. $14 million in pre-announcement trading. 11 nominee accounts. 4 jurisdictions. You have used every one of these tools to take apart financial structures from the inside. You have testified before 3 federal grand juries. You have written 19 expert reports admitted into evidence. You have sat across the table from defense counsel asking you to explain how their client's offshore structure could possibly have failed AICPA review. And you have explained, methodically, exactly what they overlooked. You know, better than almost anyone in the city, exactly how to construct an offshore structure that survives audit. You know because you take them apart for a living. Daniel Reyes works the structuring side now. Former Halloran and Vance partner, left in 2024 to start his own consultancy. Mostly cross-border M&A advisory, mostly clean. He messages you on a Monday at 8:14 a.m. Quick structuring question. A client has a beneficial ownership disclosure issue, and Reyes wants to make sure he is thinking about it correctly before putting anything on paper. Could you take a look over coffee? Off the record, as a colleague. You meet Reyes Tuesday at 11:14 a.m. at a coffee shop on Lexington. He is calm. Ordered an espresso before you arrived. The structure is a British Virgin Islands nominee company holding a Delaware limited liability company that owns a Singapore operating entity engaged in pharmaceutical distribution to Southeast Asian markets. The question is whether the BVI nominee tier, combined with the Singapore operating company's local director, satisfies the exempt entity requirements under 31 CFR 1010.380. You give him the answer in 4 minutes. The structure is technically compliant. The BVI tier satisfies the beneficial ownership disclosure chain. The Singapore local director meets the substance test. Reyes nods. He says thank you. He pays for both coffees. You walk back to the office. The mug is on your desk. You do not look at it. 3 days later, a check arrives, drawn on the Reyes Advisory Group operating account. $800. Memo. Professional consultation. March. You deposit it before noon. This is, you tell yourself, identical to what you do at the firm every day. The read was correct. It would have been correct if you had given it on firm letterhead. The only difference is that no one at Halloran and Vance reviewed it. You do not tell yourself it was the last time. It barely registered as a first. Reyes refers 2 more entities over the next 4 months. A real estate holding company in Liechtenstein owned through a Cayman foundation. A pharmaceutical IP licensing structure, routed from Hungary through Cyprus to a U.S. licensed operating company. Each engagement. 4-paragraph opinion, certification numbers in the footer, manila envelope of cash at a private club where Reyes is a member. The fee escalates. $8,400, then $11,200. The work is identical to what you do at the firm. You begin keeping the cash in a safety deposit box at a credit union in a different borough. The transactions never enter your bank account. Halloran asks how you're doing in late October. Says you seem to have moved past the missed promotion. Says he's glad to see you focused on the work again. He asks about the mug. Says he hasn't seen it on your desk in a few weeks. You tell him the morning sunlight was making the lacquer fade. He nods. He says that was thoughtful. The mug is in the second drawer. You did not move it because of the sunlight. The third client is structurally different. A family office with 17 entities across 9 jurisdictions. The principal, a name you will not say out loud, ever, wants more than an opinion. Wants you to design the next iteration. Wants you to write the documentation that will survive audit. Because no one else can write it the way you can. You say yes on a Thursday. The retainer is $40,000 per month. The first month is paid before you have begun work. The new structure rotates through 5 layers. Cayman feeder fund subscribed by a BVI master fund, owned by a Liechtenstein foundation with a Panamanian protector and a Liechtenstein treuhänder, holding a Delaware Series LLC with 17 separate cells, each of which owns a U.S. domiciled real estate special purpose entity. You design the documentation to survive subpoena. You know which jurisdictions take 14 months to respond to mutual legal assistance requests. You know which structures break the BOI disclosure chain because the foundation's settler died in 2019 and the protector has not been replaced. You write the audit ready files yourself. You include the Dober grade methodology citations because if anyone ever does subpoena them, the citations will be the first thing they read and the citations will hold. The documentation runs to 412 pages across the 17 cells. Organizational charts. Beneficial ownership registers. Director appointment letters with sequential dates that establish a paper trail of arm's length governance. Intercompany loan agreements at market interest rates sourced from the applicable OECD transfer pricing guidelines. The Foundation's trust deed with the settler's death certificate attached, establishing that beneficial control transferred to the discretionary class in 2019 per the terms of the deed, and that no replacement protector has been appointed because the trust instrument does not require one. Every page is correct. Every page is designed to be correct. The correctness is the mechanism. The mug is in a drawer somewhere. You do not remember which one. The hairline crack. You noticed it at month 3. You did not throw the mug out. You closed the drawer. By month 14, you have designed 17 structures across 9 jurisdictions for 4 principals. You are the only person in the country who knows how all of them connect. You operate 3 identities through a Wyoming Series trust, filed under your mother's maiden name. Total annual fees from the network, $640,000. You attend the firm's quarterly partner reception in a suit that costs more than your father's first car. You smile at Halloran. You accept his comment that the consulting work seems to be agreeing with you. He says perhaps the missed promotion was a blessing. Opened up time you wouldn't have had as senior partner. He says it warmly. He means it completely. You say thank you. What you have built is not a service. It is not a consultancy. It is an architecture of institutional knowledge, wrapped inside attorney-adjacent opinion letters that carry your credentials in the footer. The principals are not your clients in any sense you would recognize from the Halloran and Vance engagement model. They are counterparties. They know the structures exist. They do not know how the structures connect to each other. Only you know how they connect. That asymmetry, the knowledge differential between you and every other person in the network, is the only thing protecting you. You understand this with the same clarity you bring to mapping a fraud scheme on a whiteboard for a federal grand jury. The map is in your head. You have told no one. You are the only single point of failure in a network that will not fail. The compliance department at Halloran and Vance runs an annual conflict of interest review of every partner's external engagements. The review is routine. It has occurred every January for 19 years. You find the review notice in your inbox on the 3rd Tuesday of January. It asks for a list of all external consulting engagements over the prior 12 months, including client names, fees received, and a summary of services. The deadline is 14 days. You sit at your desk for 26 minutes without moving. You begin operating on 3 burner phones, rotated monthly, purchased with cash from electronics retailers in 3 different cities. All client communication moves to Signal, with disappearing messages set to 24 hours. You print nothing. You stop using your work laptop for any non-firm activity. You run adversarial checks against your own digital trail, the same kind you would run for a fraud investigation client trying to sanitize their own exposure. You find 7 items that need to be addressed. You address all 7 within 9 days. You begin noticing things that did not used to register. Reflections in elevator panels. The sequence of cars on your block during morning departure. The faces of the security guards at the federal building 3 blocks from your office. You change routes home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You begin paying for everything in cash that you can pay for in cash. You scan conference rooms for unfamiliar attendees. You read the firm's daily visitor logs each morning before you open your email. You memorize the names of every junior associate who has been assigned to forensic engagements involving offshore structures in the last 6 months. You recognize, with something close to vertigo, that you are running the exact playbook you used to teach to junior analysts on the day they joined the forensic services practice. You taught it as basic operational awareness. You taught it as something to apply to the targets of investigations, not to themselves. Your personal cell phone rings at 7:47 p.m. on a Wednesday. The voice is one of the principals, a name you have never said in your office, never written in any document, never spoken into any of the 3 burner phones. He says, "We need to discuss a referral matter on Monday." Same location as the last one. He hangs up. You did not give him this number. You did not give the network this number. The number is registered to a personal account opened in 2014, used only for family and your dentist. You sit with the phone in your hand for 11 minutes without moving. The existential stage is not fear. It is calculation. You run the exposure matrix the same way you run it for clients. Likelihood of detection, timeline to indictment, jurisdictions with active mutual legal assistance agreements, the number of people who could produce testimony against a specific layer of the network. You have performed this analysis before. You have never performed it about yourself. The answer is not reassuring. The principals have more leverage over you than you have over them. The network knows your personal number. The network knows where you work. The network knows which federal case you have just accepted. They did not tell you they knew. They did not have to. You had believed until 7:47 p.m. on that Wednesday that the asymmetry protected you. You were the only one who held the full map. You were not the only one who knew you held it. Halloran invites you to dinner in mid-February. He chooses a restaurant in Midtown he's been taking partners to for 3 decades. He orders for both of you. He waits until the second course before he says what the dinner is actually about. The firm has been approached by federal counsel regarding a multi-jurisdiction money laundering investigation. 2 former Halloran and Vance clients are implicated. The defense team is looking for a forensic accountant of unimpeachable expertise to lead the structural analysis. Someone who can examine the architecture of the implicated entities and document, in court-admissible form, the technical compliance of each layer. The engagement would route through outside counsel under attorney-client privilege. The fee would be substantial. Halloran says, "If anyone in this country would understand exactly how those structures actually work, it's you. I told them you'd be perfect. I gave them your name." He does not know he has just handed you the one instrument that can make you untouchable. He does not know because he has never designed a structure. He has only ever hired the person who takes them apart. You accept the engagement on Wednesday. The privilege attaches the moment you sign the engagement letter. Every document you review is now protected. Every discovery you document becomes the official record of the investigation. The methodology you use is your own. The AICPASSFS, compliant work paper structure you wrote, that the firm trained junior associates on, that has been admitted into evidence in 19 federal proceedings. You are no longer just designing the architecture. You are now performing forensic analysis on the network you built, under privilege that prevents anyone from ever asking you what you found. The structures you designed will be reviewed by the foremost forensic accountant in the city. The foremost forensic accountant in the city will conclude that the structures are technically compliant. The investigation will move on. The mug is gone. You do not remember when. The first day of the engagement is a Monday in March. Federal conference room. 2 attorneys from the defense firm. A junior associate the firm assigned to your team. Her nameplate reads, Elena Vasquez, Senior Associate Forensic Services. She is 28 years old. CPA in 2023. CFE in process. The partnership committee assigned her to your team because she reminds them of you 14 months ago. She is, by every report, the kind of analyst who returns every email within 4 hours. She asks how you would approach the structural analysis. You walk her through the methodology. The same one that built the architecture. The same one that survives audit because you wrote it to survive your own audit. She takes notes in a notebook, with her name embossed on the cover. You watch the notebook fill with your handwriting in her hand, the methodology, the name tools, the jurisdictions that respond slowly and the ones that do not respond at all. The specific clause in 31 CFR 1010.380 that governs the exempt entity determination. She writes it the way you wrote it, 11 years ago, when someone sat across from you and explained that the credential was only the entry point, that the work itself was what you built after. Halloran stops by the conference room before lunch. He looks at Elena. He looks at you. He says, "She's good, like you were. You are not the architect anymore. The network found one.